Hi and welcome, this is Smirnov. In this lesson I will show you one simple yet very powerful and simply must-know rule about middle game plan. Also, I'll show you my complete middle game play system. And before that, let me just say a few words of why this topic is so important. Not long ago, I made a survey on my website where I asked you and the other students to share your main questions and main troubles with chess with me. And do you know what was the most common issue that chess players experience? It's about how to play a middle game. In the opening, it's somewhat easier. You can pick the opening that you like, study an opening book about this opening and just go and play these moves that you learned. But once your opening knowledge has finished, you appear in a complex middle game situation with plenty of the possibilities, and then it's really not easy to figure out what to do next. Let's go and check some examples. Here's a relatively standard middle game situation. The opening stage has just finished, both sides have developed their pieces, and now this is time to start realizing a certain middle game plan. It is white to move, and please think about this. How would you play here as white? What do you think? In fact, there are many of the options that white has. White can move the bishop somewhere to make it more active, or the other bishop can go to g3 or maybe to h4. The e2 knight may be transferred to a more active square, like maybe to c3 or to g3. The rooks can be placed somewhere on the central files. To conclude, basically you can play almost whatever move you wish. And that's exactly where the problem is. It's not that you don't know what to do, this is rather that we've been taught so many ideas about chess that you need to fight for the center, occupy weak squares, put a rook in an open file, and so forth, that in a practical situation you have a hard time choosing exactly what do you need to do. That kinda reminds me of this analogy. If you come to a door and you want to open it, you don't have a key, so you ask another person, do you have a key? And he answers you, sure, I have plenty of them. And he gives you a bunch of 100 keys with the words, try them out, something should work out. Well, in a way he's helping you, but it's not exactly kind of a help you would prefer to get. Instead, you need something simple, something that you can follow, just take and use it. I'll tell you the solution a little later, but first let's check what happened in the actual game. White happened bishop h4, pinning the knight, white played g5 to get rid of the pin, then white noticed the new weakness in the black's position, so he played f4 to take advantage of that weakness. Black replied with queen f6, now the d4 pawn is hanging, and white needed to do something about that, played bishop b5, to protect the pawn and at the same time put pressure on black's rook. Black removed it, and white kicked away the knight, which pressurizes his central pawn, then retrieved back with the bishop. Black played knight e8. Okay, let's stop here. Now let me ask your opinion. What do you think about these moves of white? Were they good or bad or just normal, average? Well, one of the things that I would really like to highlight here is that for now this is really the middle of the game. It is 25th move of the game. While white still has his a1 rook there in the corner doing nothing, not taking part in the action. And that's a big problem because you're somewhat like playing handicap chess. You're giving away your rook, you're playing without it. Now let's come back to the starting position of this example and think what white should have done there. Here's the original position of this example. And by the way, this game is a game between two players of about 2000 in rating, so not for nothing I took the game not between two of the world top grandmasters, but between two average level players, so that you can see what happens in the games of mere mortals, not Carlsen, Topalov and the other top players. And you see that, well, white did some moves which were seemingly logical, but they were all in different directions and pursuing different goals. Like originally it seemed like white started to create some troubles for black on the king side, and then white pushed f4 to pressurize there. It seems like white wants to open up on the king side, and it does make sense. However, after that, white all of a sudden played move on the queen side, removing this bishop from the king side direction. Then instead of opening the king side, he just closed it. And as we discussed earlier, on the top of that, throughout these whole moves, throughout the whole game, the white's a1 rook did not take part into action. Now we're coming back to the original position once again. So the main thing you need to learn here is that at the beginning of the middle game, you really need to understand that not all of your pieces are developed. Usually you still have that rook on the a1, which did not make any moves in this game and is totally passive. Also, you have the rook on f1, which did make a move because it was involved in castling. Still, right now it's doing nothing. And therefore, these two pieces you still need to develop. Usually the best squares for them are the central squares of C, D or E lines, and you just need to move it there, ideally on an open file. With this knowledge in mind, what should be the white's next two moves in this position? It should be rook A to C1 and rook F to E1. By doing so, you will activate all of your pieces and you will make sure that you don't forget about that in the further complications. Here's another example. As you can see, the pawn structure and the opening is very different. Still, it is white to move, and please think about this and tell me what are the two next moves white needs to play. Hopefully you can notice an analogy with the previous example. White needs to bring his rooks into play. Therefore, he needs to play rook e1 and rook c1. Very simple. Is that right? Seems to be right. However, now let's take a look at what happened in the actual game, and you'll see that it was something very different. I played rook e1, then knight e5, bishop b1. I don't even analyze these moves too much. I just want that you pay attention to the fact that the white's rook is always standing on a1 out of game, even though it was so easy for white to develop it. And you see that so many things happening, the knight is maneuvering, the rook is coming to the attack, and during all of those moves, it's already the 25th move of the game, still the rook stands in the corner doing nothing. Once again, this example is taken from the game of players about 1900 or 2000 rated. Probably you never heard about these names, so I don't even tell you them. However, rest assured that it's not only for this level of players. Whenever new students comes to me, very often I see the same pattern in the games of FIDE masters and even international masters sometimes, that they lose a game and still their rook is on its original place, which should never happen to you. This time it is black to play. As always, please think about the position and tell me what do you think black should do. Of course, you may take into account the things you already learned from the previous examples. Well, before we move on to the right things, let's check what happened in the actual game. Black played a6, and after the exchange in c4, he got destroyed within a few moves, so the game didn't last long. Let's go back and think what black should have done here. As always, you need to think how to bring your rooks into play. Currently they are inactive, and you need to activate them somehow. Usually, in the middle game you need to castle, but this time it's more difficult to do that for black because the knight is pinned and the king cannot go away, the knight will be lost. Anyway, black still needs to find a way to bring his rooks into play. And there are a number of possibilities how this may be done. For example, black can play rook d8 to bring this rook into play and also to support the knight. And after that, black may either castle kingside or the kingside rook may be activated through the g-file, because after an eventual exchange of pawns, this rook can be activated along the g-file. Anyway, the moves that black really needs to play are the moves rook d8 and probably rook g8 or maybe castling. For instance, you can start by this move, and on the next move you can decide what to do next. For example, you can trade the pawns and put the rook on the g-file and make it active and even start taking white's king. And in this case, black would have an absolutely normal position with mutual chances for both sides. You see, it seems very easy when you know how to play, but in the actual game, just got destroyed very quickly. And again, this is a player of 2000 rated, so it's not a beginner player. Still, he makes these obvious, hopefully now obvious for you, mistake. Bottom line, you need to put your rooks on the central lines at the beginning of the middle game. You need to make 2 moves to activate your rooks by placing them on one of the central lines, preferably on an open file. And usually you need to choose from the C, D and E files. This may seem like a simple rule, but as we have seen by a couple of examples, even relatively strong players violate it very often and get crushed. So you need to make sure that you never fall into this trap yourself. And also it gives you a simple hint of what you should be doing at the beginning of the middle game, so at least 2 moves you can make almost unthinkingly just by following this simple rule. Okay, I hope you will follow it and will win a lot of games. At the same time, of course, it was only one rule, and middle game is a relatively complex thing, so I cannot explain the whole middle game strategy within one short video lesson. And also I noticed that, based on the results of the survey, I noticed that students really have a lot of questions there about how to play there and what to do there, how to evaluate positions and so forth. And that's why, to address it, I decided to share with you my own system of middle game play. And I called this new course Winning the Middle Game. It contains a single system of how you should be playing well in the middle game, how you should find the right plan and the right moves. This is the system I use myself, and I was also presenting it to my students. Therefore, I'm sure this is something practical that you can apply in your games. And the main thing here is that instead of a bunch of various theoretical knowledge that you can get from different tutorials, I wanted to share with you a single system that you can just take and use. I hope you will like it, and I'm pretty sure it will help you win much more games. This is a paid product, and of course it depends on you on whether you need this or not. Some players don't have any goals in chess and they don't care if they win or lose. If you're that sort of player, of course you don't need to pay money for this course. At the same time, if you like to study chess to improve and to win more games, then I would definitely recommend that you study this course. I'm relatively convenient you will like it, and I'm absolutely sure it will give you a lot of new victories and a lot of progress. As always, I provide a money-back guarantee for this course, and therefore you can try it out and just decide if this is something suitable for your needs. You can find a link here in the video, and you can check all the descriptions of the course there. Thanks for your attention. I'll talk to you in the following videos.